Hey there. Look, we're all facing, in different ways, a very serious crisis just at the moment. We're in the middle of the COVID-19 crisis, which is a worldwide pandemic, as unless you've been living under a stone, you might have noticed. What it does for all of us is it gives us all personal problems at home, personal issues that we have to deal with. But for businesses, it's actually pretty serious, especially for small and medium-sized businesses, because of the issues that it presents in terms of the people that we work with and work in our businesses or work for corporates. It really presents problems to operations because people do the operations, other companies supply things to us, all sorts of things can go wrong with operations. And what that presents to us as well is a potential to impact on both costs and on cash flow. And the other thing that happens with cash flow, of course, when you're in a business in these sorts of unfortunate situations is some customers don't buy, some clients stop buying, so we've got a bit of an issue. And what that does is it puts us into a bit of a spot, really. And the spot it puts us into is that we go into a crisis as an organisation sometimes. And what that really means for us is that our cash flow drops, our people drop, our processes drop, and we begin to drop down and we begin to go in under the profit margin that we're looking for. Worse, we might actually go in under the break-even line that we're looking for, head towards a loss. And what we want to do is to try and turn that around through some form of crisis management, business continuity planning that we call, or we try to use and we try eventually to get to some sort of recovery out of that. What we don't want, of course, is to head towards insolvency. And I just thought I might share some of the ideas that have been floating around for quite a while on how you might be able to cope with that. I'm Clive Smallman. You might be familiar, I'm normally cast as a personal and professional productivity expert. It just so happens that I've spent about 30 years researching risk and crisis management, also teaching it, and also doing consulting work in it. A couple of big projects I've done over time. With a big charity working in Cambridge, we looked at workplace health and safety. That's a few years back, but that's the sort of work I did. More recently, I've been working with a senior manager in Coca-Cola, looking at how to improve their crisis management teams and their crisis management performance. So a few ideas as to what's going on, I thought I'd just might share with you. I kind of think of these sort of things in organisations as being a little bit like a sporting injury, and you'll get the metaphor that I'm using as I work through some of the ideas. When you come out of crisis, or when you're controlling crisis, you've got to get to grips with it. You've got to get into a continuity phase. In other words, you've got to get up and walk after you've fallen over if you've got an injury. You then go and get your physiotherapy, you go and work through your injury, you get into recovery, and then eventually you get back to normal operations. Now, I'm not trivialising business crisis, but that is essentially what you do. The things that we need to think about when we go into managing a crisis are, what's your crisis management team look like? Your crisis management team will look very different, probably, unless you're a very small organisation, will look a little bit different from your regular management team. And that's because sometimes the people in senior roles in an organisation aren't necessarily the people that you need to manage the organisation when it's in some form of crisis. Once you've got your team together, then you've really got to set your agenda. You've got to understand what's going on. You need to know what it is you're trying to achieve and how you're going to go about trying to achieve it. And there's some points that follow on from that. You need to understand what the situation is for you. In this case, COVID-19 is what I'm talking about. The impact will be different for every organisation. We've all got different ways of operating. We've all got different things that we need to do. And we need to understand what the impact is so we can get to grips with the situation as it's presented to you. We need to know what's disrupted. We need to know what is being affected by this whole affair. The next, once we've got to grips with that, then we can start to work how we're going to start to continue, how we're going to start to develop, how we're going to start to really carry on. And there's a whole series of things that you need to work through right along your supply chain, right along your production chain. You need to, of course, work out your messaging with your suppliers, with your customers, with your buyers, with your business partners, and all of those sorts of people. Because one of the things that really goes wrong in organisations when they get into a tight spot, when they get into a crisis, is they don't spend sufficient time communicating with their stakeholders. That's something that really needs to be done. That's usually the job for the general manager or the CEO or the owner. They're the person that really needs to handle those important relationships. And then once we're there, we need to start to think how we're going to recover. And there are key questions that you begin to ask around which products, which is the way forward, which way do you actually want to go. Those are the broad areas that you need to think about. If you would like to find out a little bit more, please just feel free to get in touch, drop into the link that I put associated with these videos. You can email me directly, clive@clivesmallman.com. Whichever way you go, whatever has been presented to you, as do most people, I wish you only the very best with dealing what is an enormously difficult situation for organisations. If there is anything that I might be able to help with, or my team might be able to help with, then please do get in touch. And just remember that you can recover from these sorts of events. What we just need is a clear plan, and we need a clear set of actions to help us move forward through it and then out of it.